So Justin is now back on the channel. Justin, like myself, is interested in the tarot. He's interested in Kabbalah. He is also a producer of films, which is really interesting. So I think that his background is so fascinating. And just before we came on, Justin was telling me about that. As a part of his morning practice, he reads a poem, which I think is really beautiful and something that I might try to do myself. Just got to find the right poet to read, I think. Yeah, because I think there's something quite interesting about doing something creative in the morning, which I guess reading a poem is, right? Because I usually do some exercise and then do my meditation, and then it's getting on with the day, whilst you read a poem. And so, Justin, what poem did you read today?
Great question. Happy to be back here as well. So one thing I will say too about poetry, and then I'll share a passage from the poem I read this morning, is it's really important. I've learned to read, or I should say the poem aloud. And at first, it's a little weird to read a poem to yourself, but then it becomes really beautiful as part of the practice. But poetry is meant to be spoken. And when I do that in the morning, I have no practice of the poem before. I'm literally reading it usually for the first time. I recently just finished a whole book of Rumi's poetry, which I would highly recommend, both to yourself and to anyone who's watching or listening to this in any capacity. David White, the
Mm.
brilliant UK and American poet, is amazing. I started with his work, then moved on to Rumi. I'm now on to Walt Whitman. So today I read the first poem. Excuse me one second. Sorry about that.
That's right.
Today I read the first poem from The Leaves of Grass. So I'll just read a small portion of that. Oneself I sing, a simple, separate person, yet utter the word democratic, the word en masse. I say the form complete is worthier far, the female equally with the male I sing. Of life immense in passion, pulse, and power, cheerful for freest action formed under the laws divine, the modern man I sing.
Mm. So is he still around? Like, is that poem contemporary or is it older?
So Walt Whitman lived in the 1800s. He might have
Wow.
lived into the 1900s. I don't recall exactly his dates. I want to say that's true. Um, Homosexual. So
Mm.
there's portions later in his poetry I just know from previous glimpses into it where he talks about being with men and freely doing so, going swimming, making love, very one of the first kind of poets to kind of do that in a very open way, in a way that it feels like it was just written yesterday.
Mm.
Um, and as you can tell from even that poem, all of his poetry does still resonate.
Yeah,
He's
very
very
much so.
he's very much an American in some ways. Later in his poetry, when he describes certain parts of this country that I'm in, the United States, but his poetry also transcends any label. I
Mm.
certainly wouldn't just call him an American poet, and that's what poetry has the power to do. Someone's origin and who they are is interesting. However, and it might be a lens through which to see some of their work, but just like with any author or artist, um, while that's important, the key is like what are they saying and what's being evoked in the message there.
Yeah, because I mean, he's a heretic, right? He's a heretic, which I love. The only reason is because I'm currently reading The Age of Madness by this Age of Madness trilogy. And anyway, it's in the third book of this third series, and it's all about equality and the man and the woman becoming equals and yada yada yada. So it's sort of we're actually sort of swimming in the same waters, and it's like a war
Yeah.
happening. It's the people's war, like. standing up against sort of the factory owners, capitalism, all that kind of stuff. So it's really interesting. So we're currently swimming in the same waters of that. And I mean, surely we are also that today with all of the sort of conversations around gender and again equality. And of course, that's also on different timelines across the globe, right? When it comes to men and women and LGBTQIA plus and the whole other range. That's really fascinating. The question that we are going to ask the tarot today, we try to be a bit cheeky here on the channel when Justin comes on. What we are going to ask the tarot today, what was it again? We asked the tarot, what did I say? What did you say?
I think if we could phrase it this way, maybe it's what the tarot's thoughts are about gay hookup culture, casual sexual
Yes.
encounters.
What does
Not to say if it's right or wrong, right? I
Mm,
think we want to get more deeply into that, like how
mm,
it affects individuals and maybe what to look out for. I don't know, but we can take it
mm.
wherever you'd want it to go, and the tarot leads us.
Yeah. Do we add towards the end? What does the tarot think about gay hookup culture and spirituality, or do we leave spirituality out? What do you think?
I don't think we ever can. Because spirituality is something we always have with us, right? Anything
Mm,
that we do, whether it's something like eating or, you know, evacuating ourselves or sex or any
mm.
encounter we have is always loaded with the divine somehow. So
Yeah.
I would be advocating to bring that in.
Yeah, let's bring that in. So the final version, I'm loving that we're doing this live on the conversation. What does the tarot think about gay hookup culture and spirituality?
Mhm.
And we're
Beautiful.
going to pull two cards each, and then we are going to share our interpretation.
Perfect. So should we both shuffle?
Yeah,
Yeah, let's do it.
let's do it. You use the original wider rate, right?
I do. Yep.
Would you say that's your favorite deck?
It is. I've just found it to be the most accessible to me. I've used and or used other decks before. I have a really interesting Sufi deck to go back to Rumi a little bit that, maybe we can use next time. The images are fascinating and some of its interpretation as well. Slight differences, but yet, of course, the core meaning is the same.
Yeah, and we're doing this underneath the full moon of Capricorn, going into Capricorn season for the next 2 weeks,
Yes.
which you said was in the planet of Jupiter, right?
I don't know if that's true. Saturn rules Capricorn, I think is
Saturn
what.
rune rules. Sorry, that's what you said. Yeah.
But as far as what planet it's in, I don't know that off the top of my head. Good
Me
question.
neither. Me neither. All right, let's do you can go first.
Great. So I'm going to have you pick the two cards I have shuffled. So
Oh.
just intuitively tell me when to stop. I'm going to flip them over face down. Just tell me to stop twice, and those will be our cards. So are you ready?
Hmm.
All right, here we go. Tell me when to stop.
Stop.
And just for the reader, viewer, listener, etc., that card lingered on my hand. And whenever that happens to me, it's like a really big, even bigger message, I guess, for us. Because sometimes it gets sticky, would be the way I would describe it. It's almost energetic.
Mm.
It doesn't want to let go. And so the fact that you picked that one is interesting. So card number two, tell me when to stop.
Stop.
All right, so I have my two cards. Should I show them one at a time? Should I do the first one and we discuss, or do both?
Do both.
Okay. And Tor, are either of these cards reversed, yes or no? Because I personally do not shuffle reversals.
Yeah, no, so I don't think anyone is reversed. No, let's keep him upright.
Right. So we're looking at this in real time. I haven't seen the card yet for everyone that's watching. Tor hasn't seen the card, of course, either. It is, oh, the Five of Swords, which Tor is making that sound because we were literally having a probably 20-minute discussion about the Five of Swords, among others, but specific to that right before we got on. So the fact that that came up randomly is pretty fascinating.
That is pretty fascinating.
Yeah. So what are your first thoughts that come when we pull this card for our question about gay casual hookups and the correlation with spirituality?
What do I think? What a good question. I mean, it's always interesting. It's like we've been speaking about earlier. It's so important the ways in which that we speak about something and the words that we use to describe something and and belief is of course also really important. And so what I am unsure about, it's the thing of course, like intention is really important. And what I am unsure about is that let's say you tell yourself that hookup culture is okay. This depends on the intention that you go in with. And you believe that that's okay. However, is that true? Like, does hookup culture chip your soul, for lack of better words? Right? Like, I just don't know. And I suppose it is about, I think it's about the feeling that you are left with afterwards, right? I think the feeling that you're left with afterwards is really important. And because I was speaking to somebody earlier about shame and guilt.
Yes.
And and this makes me think about a podcast that I was listening to like weeks ago where somebody said, "Oh, when you're a mother, a little bit of guilt is probably a good thing because it makes you a better mother." I don't know if that perspective is true because I don't know if what people need more of is more shame and guilt. Because I think most people probably feel too much shame and guilt.
Yes.
And so creating structures and frameworks and ways of thinking about speaking about something which creates more guilt and shame surely cannot be useful. But it still doesn't take away from what I was saying earlier, is that maybe you can tell yourself, you can create a delusion where like it's fine to hook up and maybe I can trick myself into not feeling shame and guilt. But maybe beneath everything, you still feel shame and guilt because your soul doesn't think it's okay to do hookup culture. Like, do you get what I mean? Like, it's an interesting one because technically we also just don't know, right? We can sense, but we don't actually know. And so, thinking about the Five Swords, but I do think the Five Swords in this way, it's like we were just talking about earlier, it's about letting go of something that's still with you in the past. So you could turn that two ways, right? You could turn it towards in a more spiritual life, you need to let go of hookup culture to reach that higher state, for lack of better words. Or you need to stop creating spiritual purity because that's the flip side, right? Like, do you see what I mean? Do you see what I'm going with that? And so, yeah,
Yes.
that's sort of my thoughts on the Five Swords. What are your thoughts?
So I love that you use the word intention because that was the thing that jumped into my head
Mm.
at first when this was pulled. And fives in the tarot, especially in the, well, specific to the minor arcana, which this is, are all about contraction. It's about going within. And because swords are the mind and then communication, what are you telling yourself? What is your belief as you head into the potential hookup?
Mm,
Uh, what is it that you really need and hope to gain from it?
mm,
And I think the other part that we don't talk about a lot as in terms of hookup culture, even just sex period, is sex involves another person.
mm,
And yes, I cannot choose for my partner what's going on with them. I can't say yes or no or necessarily even divine, if you will, what their intention is. However, there are things we can pick up on that I think I could certainly share stories from the past of things that I've missed purposely because I wanted what I wanted. Whether that was that the person really needed love and companionship, and here I'm giving them something that seemed more base than that, something that's purely about, an orgasm or pleasure, right? When that isn't truly what they need. And I've certainly done that for myself too, when I've convinced myself, to borrow what you said, to, yeah, this will make me feel better when, yeah, it might for a moment. And of course it does. It's not that it doesn't feel good most of the time, but is that truly giving me what I need? And
mm,
I think that's what the tarot is reminding us of. I think it's not to say that no hookup or something casual cannot be good or pure. That's why I believe we got a five. It's like it could go either way to
exactly. It
almost.
could go either way.
But I think to ask a stranger at that time, because that's the nature of a hookup, more or less, someone that we've just met, so in that sense, they're still a stranger, to really satisfy what we're going in with is not only a big ask, but probably not the most spiritually aligned thing we could do. It doesn't
Mm,
mean never. It just means that I think for the amount of sex people are having as that are casual hookups, I don't know that they're getting out of it what they really need. In
mm,
fact, for a different purpose, I was looking up for research reasons like Grindr as an example. And it's not to pick on them, but they're, we know, the largest gay hookup app that there is, right? The average user spends an hour to an hour and 15 minutes on the app a day. That's a lot of time. And that's
that is a
only the
lot of time.
And that number, by the way, comes from Grindr, not from me, not from a scientist with a warped point of view that wants to shut him down, not from some religious whatever. That's their statistic.
Mm,
And so it made me step back and wonder, and it's again not in a judgment of the app or what's going on, but what is it that we're hoping to get from that? I don't think we're spending an hour, and I'll just say we, because I want to include myself. I'm not personally on the app, but I have been. So I'm going to include myself. I don't know that that length of time is really got me what I truly wanted, what I truly needed from that. And I think that's where the spiritual really comes in. Sex is a very spiritual act, whether we're conscious of that or not. It always is. And it can be beautiful and transcendent, and it's two souls coming together and all the things. And I don't mean that as poetry. I mean, that's what's really going on. But when I bring in someone's energy and I invite them into mine, we're also bringing in everything else that comes with it. And I think that's why in the picture, you have these two people walking away, one with a bloody robe because they've been, bled by the encounter, and the other person's walking away crying, whether
mm.
that's from shame or guilt or pain. I think there's a very strong reason why that came up. If this was a yes or no reading, which it's not, this would be a clear no. So,
Yeah, no, it would. So I think the two key words from what you've said and what I've said is like what is the intention and what is the need,
yes.
right? And so the advice, the guidance, perhaps, when engaging in hookup culture is just to take a moment to pause and ask oneself, what is it that I actually need right now? Maybe what you need is just physical body contact and hookup. Fine. That could be the case. But or do you need to call a friend?
That's right.
Do you need deeper connection? Is that the need in this moment in time, right? And so, yeah, I think that's the important question that we have to ask ourselves is what is the need and what is the intention? And add on to that, like what is the feeling afterwards?
Yes, and incorporating that other person as well that you're encountering, just because they're the physical embodiment in the
Yeah.
moment of what we hope to have. If we get that sense that like there's something else going on with them, it's important to listen to that.
Mm,
That intuition, that still small voice. Again, I can't choose for someone else, but it's also too easy to be aware of that coming in from someone and to dismiss it because we want what we want.
mm,
The last thing I want to say about that is, you mentioned two great examples. Maybe we just need to call a friend and have a deeper connection, a real
mm,
one, if you will, that isn't about sex. The other thing is maybe we just need to shut the hell up and be alone and
mm,
sit with spirit, because that's really hard.
mm,
And even as you know, as a practitioner and a teacher of spiritual based practice, you can get so wrapped up in the practice that you don't actually stop and go, what am I feeling? What's really going on with me?
mm,
And I think a lot of times we reach for a phone or something else. We go out, we eat food, whatever it is a substitute for sitting with ourselves and the divine to really have those things come up that are here inside of us that now want to come forward and speak to us, if I could say it in a
mm.
as non-woo-woo of a way as possible.
Hey, we're talking about the tarot and you're on my channel. It can be woo-woo, you know, it's
That's
fine. It's fine.
fair.
Um,
Should
do
we
I
look at
take,
the other card?
yeah, go with the other card. Go with the other card.
So that's going to be interesting, and I haven't looked at it yet to see what pairs with the Five of Swords, and it is the Devil. I mean, this is a Capricorn moon, people, and it's a full moon, and we're being invited to let go of things that don't serve us. There are people that are watching this where this is a thing to let go of. This isn't Justin being a preacher, it's just the truth. Because what this is saying to me immediately is that hookup culture can be a trap. And I want to
Mm,
say that again, it can be a trap. I'm not here to say shut it all down, don't ever do it. That's not what we're saying. And I know, Tor, you would agree with me on that. But we are saying be mindful of the fact that it can trap you. And if you
mm.
look at the card, where is the light source? Lucifer, the devil, this angel has put it toward the bottom. It's not shining overhead. It's only illuminating the feet. And
I
I
was gonna
think
say the
here,
ass, but you know.
or the there we go. Yeah, the good bits. Um, but that's interesting. And it, literally that torch is almost touching the tail, right? Which is that animal nature.
Yeah, it
And
is.
so, yeah,
It's really interesting that the devil came up. Um, because yeah, of course, the lower octave of the devil is like self-indulgence, all of that kind of stuff. I
right.
suppose, you know, a part of my being is that I'm always, not always, but I mean, and we did ask this question. I suppose I just want to be like, I hesitate. I'm very hesitant when it comes to like what I like to call like spiritual purity. Um, but I mean, if this, like you said earlier, if this was a yes or no question, these two cards together would be a hard no.
A hard no. Yeah.
A hard no. By the way, your camera is slightly blurry. Do you just want to put your hand in front of it and back again? And then that should probably find its way back to where you were earlier.
Better.
Um, slightly. Um, yeah. There's almost no other way to interpret the devil, you know, than team. You might be taking it too far.
Yeah. It's a caution, I think. And it doesn't mean that that's what's happening. It just is a caution to do it
Yeah.
as you do it. And I think that goes back to intention as well. Being
Mm,
super conscious, you won't fall into it being a trap because the
mm.
devil can also be a positive thing of pleasure.
Yeah.
Uh, Pleasure isn't a negative, pleasure is from the divine, of course. Sex is from the divine. However, anything that's pleasurable can go, as you said, too far, or we can become so fixated on it that we dismiss the spiritual, we dismiss the other person, we dismiss what we really need, etc. And that's what I see here is it's a caution.
Yeah. Because you could also just say, hey, pleasure is good. Go for it.
Yeah, but do it with cautious, mindful intention.
Yeah. I think that's probably the sort of balanced middle line, isn't it? Which obviously speaks very well to my Libra in rising, you know? It's like, let's be diplomatic here, you know? Let's have a bit of let's have a bit of balance. Yeah, wow. I mean, th those two cards together couldn't have been more clear if it was a yes or no question. It's a good thing we didn't go for a yes or no question because otherwise it would have been like, no team. Gaze, what are you doing? It's like, stop that. It's like, grow up. Fascinating. Okay. My first.
Yes.
I mean, it's kind of funny because I suspect that maybe I will have like opposite cards to you,
Let's see.
which I would say this kind of interestingly enough. So I have the Knight of Wands as my first
Okay.
card,
Yeah.
which what are your thoughts? Since I went first on the Five of Swords, what is your first thoughts on the Knight of Wands?
Yeah, absolutely. So the court cards are always us, right? So it's not about another person, it's about you or me if I'm the one asking, is hooking up right for me and is it spiritually aligned or however we want to phrase the question for ourselves. Wands are passion, wands are
Mm,
energy, wands are sex, and so to me it's like if you're going to charge ahead with this, it just to me it really doubles down on the cards that I had and it tells a more complete story. You
mm,
have the fire in your hand, the wand. Where are you going to cast that fire? Will it burn you up or will you start a flame that's exciting and you know uh enlightening, if we could use that word. Fire
mm,
itself is a tool, right? And it can be used for bad or for good. All
mm.
things in this world are the same. You know, Going back to me mentioning Grinder, I'll just again use that as an example. The app is the app. It's neither a bad or good thing. It's the user. We are the ones that have control over it. And again, the caution is don't let it have control over you.
Yeah, and I mean, again, with the Knight of Wands, it's about extremes, right? It's about not falling into extremes and having
Yeah.
balance. Again,
Yeah. Would
um,
would that fire and that passion and that energy that you have be better used somewhere else, or is it fulfilling, rewarding,
mm,
enlightening, empowering to use with
mm,
this person at this moment at this time in
mm,
terms of
mm. That's so interesting because it is sort of it sort of continues on from the Devil, the Five Swords, and again, it's about how do you decide to spend that energy, and that's up to you, basically.
yeah.
All right.
And it is to us every day, whether we're talking about sex or what we're going to eat or how we're going to spend our time. There's nothing wrong with, doing any activity, but is it taking us away and is it the best? And those are the things. The intent is the important thing. What did
So
you get?
again, now it's the Eight of Swords.
Yeah, makes sense.
Again, if this was a yes or no question, it would have been like, team, stop being so immature, grow up, and find different ways to engage with people that are more mature, tactful, intentional. Um, don't let your sort of insecurity of needing to feel beautiful and needed and wanted to drive your sexual encounters.
to drive your action. Yeah, I think what you hit
Kind of.
on is really, really beautiful because I find for myself, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I know that what I'm about to say is pretty universal. A lot of the times in the past where that had been the thing I was clicking onto and wanting, desiring, what I really desired underneath that was to be affirmed, was to be acknowledged, was to be seen, was to be desired.
Mm,
And to ask someone on an app or in person, again, who you've just met or whatever, to do that for you is a huge responsibility you're casting on them behind the scenes. Like Tor is my friend, right? So if I asked him, I'm feeling a little down today, is there anything you have to kind of boost me up? He would have something to say because he
mm,
knows this much, and vice versa. We've done that for each other, right?
mm,
But again, to put that on a sexual encounter, on a relative stranger is a lot.
mm,
When you got that card, the first word that came to me is, oh, it's like, sweetie, you're not trapped. This isn't the only outlet for the things that you need at all. In fact, it can be a very prohibitive one.
mm,
But the beautiful thing about the Eight of Swords is that you're not trapped. Again, it's sort of reminiscent of this. It's
mm,
like if you want to get out of that seeming chain, you just slip it off your head. And
mm,
yeah, that's easier said than done sometimes. But
mm,
those mental traps of like, but how else will I meet someone if I don't have this app or do this thing, or if I don't offer them sex first? Those are lies and thoughts that you've believed that aren't true, and it takes a minute to unravel them. But again, I think that's what the tarot is warning us against. Don't be trapped thinking that this is it and that's the only outlet, or that you're
mm,
even, pursuing it to the point that, the question is it making you actually happy? Like you commented before about what is the aftermath? What are you feeling after the encounter? Was it really satisfying, or is there lack there?
mm. I mean, the tarot has, in many ways, taken us precisely where I expected it to. I think there's just a part of my physical mind which, to some extent, find what it's given us slightly moralizing, right? There's a part of it to me which feels moralizing, and I don't know which part of my personality that despises moralizing. It's probably like, the progressive liberal person in me, which is like just let live, whatever that phrase is. Let be and let live, and like just let people get on with it. But then there is also the spiritual part of me, which is of course also why I do the work that I do, is because I think people can make changes to their life and their child, and their life would feel much better. Otherwise, I wouldn't do the work that I do, right? So, and I'm not to say that we have sounded moralizing today or in this conversation. I suppose, like, I suppose what I'm trying to sort of unearth is how can one share these kind of messages without sounding moralizing? Because just an example, it's like, let's say people who are against drag queens reading
Yeah.
kids' books to kids, right? That is a form of moralizing and overstating the effect that it will have, that a drag queen reading stories to a child will have. And are we not doing the same thing when we are saying that maybe hookah culture might not be so good for your spiritual sense of spirituality? Like, do you get what I'm getting at?
I do, and I would say that there's nothing about this that's moralizing at all. I think it's an understandable word and feeling that you, me, and anyone that triggered it for would have. I would encourage anyone to back away from the word moral and realize that we and the tarot aren't talking from a moral perspective at all. It is not
Mm,
a question of is it right or is it wrong? It is a question of is this the best for me? And again, it goes back to intent. What is the intention of the drag queen reading to the kids? It's they're wanting to share that they're having joy in both reading and connecting with the kids, and the kids get to connect to a person in a way that maybe they don't get to see very often. This is another part of what it is to be human, and it can be fun and joyous and full of love and sharing,
Mm.
right? Not to convert the kids, which of course is the real fear behind the people that don't want that to happen. And there's also the strange, correlation between why people have pushed against homosexuals being teachers at all, as if you can sprinkle homosexuality on the kids' cupcakes and suddenly they eat it and they turn gay, which of course is ridiculous and false. So same with this, it's like sex is a very beautiful thing and it's a part of life and it's a great part of life and we should have as much of it as we can. We're here to be fulfilled with pleasure and to share it with each other. The caution in that is when does it become or has it become something that's being used just like anything can be in a way that also and or could be potentially destructive, whether to ourself or to the other person. And the spiritual question is it holding you back or not? You know, the rabbi I study with, I love something he said, and I'll use the word sex in a different interpretation of it in a second. But he's like, if you want an ice cream cone, then have an ice cream cone. Just know what you're doing. And if you said that you're on a diet plan that doesn't allow ice cream, but your aunt brings over ice cream, it's like, no, 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 I can't have that. Or you're going to say, you know what? I'm making the exception. I'm consciously doing it with good intention. I'm going to enjoy this ice cream with my aunt, and then I'm going back to my diet. Let's substitute that all with sex. It's not to say, no, 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 don't ever have a hookup. It's to say, what is the intention behind what I'm doing?
Right. I think that's a really healthy and useful clarification, and I am glad we went through that because I think that sort of illuminates some of my thinking around it. I think that's really useful that we did that because yeah, I think some people who might listen to this might be like, "You're moralizing. What are you doing? Let us
Sure.
be." Like, how are you not doing what some sort of Christian religious person is doing? Like, why are you judging me for hooking up with people, right? I think it's just so important to also like bring that into the conversation, how somebody might react to that. Again, because I think that generally in spirituality and religion, sometimes there can be a level of like puritanism, which neither you nor I are really in favor of, I
Well,
suspect. And so it's, yeah, great. We did that. So the tarot says no, really.
the tarot says be mindful. That's what it said. We got those two sword cards. It's like you hold the energy in your hand, but are you giving into any devil side of it to be trapped? That's a
Mm,
caution. And where are you really at with your true intent? Is this going to bring you what you actually need in the moment, or could it be that you need something else? I
mm.
had a friend of mine, and I'm going to say this, it's cheeky, but it's fun, and that there's a truth to it. When I would be like, oh, I think I'm going to go meet this person who I just connected with, let's say on an app, he would always say, you might want to go jerk off and then decide if you really want to meet them or not. And
Yeah,
it was always an interesting pause, when you think of it that way.
it is a really interesting pause. Sometimes you just need to go and jerk off beforehand. And if the
Yeah. And
desire
then you
is
really
still
kind of can
there,
tell. Mhm. Right.
if the desire is still there, fine. But yeah, do that first, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like oftentimes, you're so intent with that almost, and it's not a bad thing. I want to be clear. That animal part of yourself, that human part of yourself that like we need that, right? That you're ignoring the other parts. And again, that's I think the clear message here.
Yeah.
Again, we can go into it with a yes or no. That's a moral question, perhaps, and that's not the intent at all. There's nothing
Mm,
immoral about hooking up. Nothing.
mm,
Do as much of it as you want and you truly want and desire to do, as long as your intent is pure and you're not diminishing any part of yourself. You are getting exactly what you truly, truly need. That's the key.
That is the key. I couldn't agree more. I love doing this with you, Justin. So we will find ourselves back here in a few weeks with another LGBTQIA plus related question. Previously we asked Taro if it's okay to be gay. This time we asked what their thoughts were around hookup culture. And you got to figure out what the next question is by coming around for the next installment on the channel of these types of questions, which I think is really funny and interesting. And thank you so much for listening. And if you have any questions to Justin or I, just leave that in the comment section and we will bring it in to the next episode.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody who finds this and listens.